Whether you recognize him as Sean Combs, Puffy, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, Diddy, or Love, you're likely familiar with his music. This music industry titan, from his humble beginnings as an intern at Uptown Records, he climbed his way up to becoming one of the most renowned and accomplished figures in hip hop history, both as an artist and a producer. And while the hip hop community has seen its fair share of scandals and controversies, it appears that our friend Diddy could be in some significant trouble this time. I'm Collier Landry. Let's get into it.
Testimony continued today in the most notorious criminal trial in...
When I was 12 years old, my testimony sent my father to prison for murdering my mother. I decided at an early age that our trauma should not be what defines us. It's what we choose to do with it that does. I'm here to share my unique perspective on true crime, mental health, society, and popular culture, albeit with a slight sense of humor. I'm Collier Landry, and welcome to my show. Mover Nation, wherever you may be and however you may be listening to me, and thank you for making me a part of your day. Thank you for making us a part of your day, because we have many people here in Mover Nation. Thank you so much for watching. Marisol has lots of thoughts that she would like to share on today's topic. But first, I want to say thank you so much to my moderators who have shown up today. Thank you so much to our new members. We had our first ever members only screening. I think every day at 3:00. Every day at 3:00 is when the Amazon guy must show up, which is the same time that I schedule this show. We're gonna have to figure this out because it's without fail. Anyways, I want to say a big shout out. We had our first ever Collier's AV Club. We had our first ever members only screening of my film, A Murder in Mansfield. A bunch of you showed up, asked a lot of questions. It was a really great experience, I think, for everyone involved. I think you guys all really enjoyed the show. And something that I found out while doing that particular screening is that the copy that I have is not the same copy that is aired on television by Investigation Discovery Plus. It is not the same copy, which was our festival copy and the original copy of the film. Oh, that was really weird. I talked to my producers about it. They're like, I didn't know that. I even spoke to Dave Messmore about it the other day, and he's like, I wasn't aware of that. Now, I haven't seen it on ID, so I don't know. But yeah, a lot of you guys who have seen it several times pointed out a lot of discrepancies between my film and the one that aired on television. So kind of cool. It's like the director's cut, producer's cut, if you will. Anyways, so it was a fantastic thing. We are going to do Collier's AV Club every month for all of our YouTube channel paying members. So if you guys join the channel membership at the $7 level, the Thriver level, that includes Collier's AV Club, or if you're a Patreon supporter, again, at that $7 level, you will have access to that. We will be posting that in the Discord. We will post all the links on all those, behind all those paywalls as well, for you guys to have access to them. It's going to be great, because not only are we going to screen my film, but we will also screen other projects as well. Some really cool stuff. And don't remember, if you are also a member, this Saturday, we're going to have our members only live meet and greet, which will be at 12 p.m. So we're doing this on Saturday instead of Sunday, because Easter is Sunday here in the United States and the rest of the world, I suppose. So we will have that members only and patron only meet and greet where you guys get to interact with everyone else. And I'm going to get to what we're going to talk about today, but I wanted to get the housekeeping out of the way. I also want to thank Sherry Falls for rejoining today, upping her monthly membership. Thank you so much. And Cat Loves Catskills, thank you so much for the super sticker. I greatly appreciate it. And yes, you asked a lot of great questions, and you got to hear all the backstories. Oh boy. So speaking of backstories, speaking of stories, this was something. So Sean Puffy Combs, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, whatever you want to call him. I mean, I grew up listening to his music, as did many of my friends, and or music that he was involved in. And Karen Isabel Stewart, thank you so much for the super sticker. And I was always sort of 50-50 on him. I've lived in Los Angeles, lived and worked in Los Angeles since 2000 and let's say 2003. know a lot of famous people. I've done a lot of people that run in those circles. I have run in those circles myself, minus the money and the fame. And I've always heard a lot about him and people connected to him. So I'm going to get into that a little bit later. But yeah, there's a lot to this. So for those of you that don't know, so on Monday, the federal government, Department of Homeland Security, raided both of his homes, one here in Los Angeles in the Holmby Hills, which is literally right over my shoulder, far away, but it's in Westwood. It's right outside UCLA, and it is, I believe, the wealthiest neighborhood in the United States, if not the world. And my dear friend John Morrissey used to live there with his ex-wife, who was the West Coast editor of Vanity Fair. And her father was a very famous movie producer. They had a beautiful house there. Aaron Spelling's house. If you guys know Aaron Spelling, like who doesn't? His house was there. I think it sold for $150 million at the time. Living in the Holmby Hills is like the creme de la creme in Los Angeles. Most people think Beverly Hills. No, it's Holmby Hills. It's just so exclusive. And that's where his house was. So, all right, hold on here. So, yeah, he's in a lot of hot water. This all seems to stem from a few lawsuits that he's been hit with. A lot of them he's settled out of court because immediately he's settling them. Look, he's a businessman. He owns Ciroc Vodka. He created Bad Boy Entertainment. Millions of artists signed under his label. He has been a massive influence on the hip hop community. But that doesn't come without its share of scandal. So, the raid itself took place on Monday, March 25th, 2024. Two properties owned by the musician, one in LA and one in Miami, were searched for evidence of an ongoing, can't really say it, but an ongoing trafficking investigation by federal authorities in New York. It remains unclear whether Monday's searches are linked to the recent allegations against Combs, but he has not faced any charges thus far. Combs' lawyer, Aaron Dyer, confirmed the searches in a statement on Tuesday, but clarified that while Diddy was never detained, he did have a conversation with the authorities. He also emphasized that neither Combs nor his family members were arrested and their freedom to travel remains unaffected. We shall see. Again, although Combs has not been identified as the specific focus of the investigation, the raid comes on the heels of multiple accusations against the founder of Bad Boy Records. These allegations have significantly impacted not only his legacy, but his career. But he's got so much money. I mean, this is part of the thing, right? And we just did the Grossman trial, which happened, ended. Rebecca Grossman was found guilty about a month ago of the murder of those two young boys, the Iskander children, who I mistakenly, by the way, had said I thought they were Latino. I'd read that they are Egyptian, so I apologize. Correction from last week's episode. But you always think that absolute power corrupts absolutely. People who are in these positions, abuse their power. Obviously, we all know this is a tale as old as time, right? However, it seems to be a lot of a reckoning. Started with the Me Too movement several years ago, and it seems to be as the proliferation of social media and independent journalism or independent investigations seems to just be becoming more and more a thing these days, and also people not being afraid, being protected by the laws to file lawsuits like the one in New York, the statute that allowed these lawsuits to be filed, or at least the first of them by Cassie Ventura. There is it looks like people are going to start being held accountable, so it will be very interesting to see. So authorities did stop him outside of the Miami Opa-locka executive airport on Monday, where they took a number of, quote, electronic devices from him. Combs cooperated after the exchange, boarded the plane with some of his children bound for the Caribbean. So I promised 5 shocking details. Shocking detail number 1. It was, however, not so easy for Brendan Paul, 25, who was about to board the plane with Diddy when he was arrested and booked for 1-count possession of suspected cocaine and marijuana possession. He had gummies or marijuana edibles after they were found in his travel bag. However, at this time, the drugs in his bag have not been linked to Puff Daddy Sean Combs. Although, however, a lot of people are citing Paul as his quote drug mule. Now, this is something that, and they've also accused him and said he was responsible for acquiring and distributing guns and drugs for Mr. Combs. Now, this is something that is very common in the entertainment industry. People do not carry their own substances. They have people carry it for them so they don't get in trouble, and then they bail them out and they take care of them and pay them. They're on the payroll. I've seen that happen many times with mostly musicians, very high profile people. And I won't name them, but I was like, oh, that's that's what they're there for. Okay, I get it. So they like to keep themselves out of trouble. Now, that said, what makes this a shocking thing, as I said, is the fact that this might come back to haunt Mr. Combs, because see, the government now has him under investigation. That's why they went ahead and raided his homes. They didn't just do it because they just felt like it. And if you look at the actual, so just to show his home in the Holmby Hills, there it is. And that is massive, like I said. And the Holmby Hills, even though it's a small neighborhood in Los Angeles, these estates that they have there are absolutely massive. I mean, that's the neighborhood. And then you can see, obviously, these photos are courtesy of TMZ. You can see the street that's just lined with police cars and law enforcement and federal agents, which I'm sure doesn't make his neighbors very happy because, like I said, it's an extremely exclusive neighborhood. I mean, you can drive through it and everything like that, but it's like you look at those houses and you're just like, wow, and they're worth tons of money. It's insane. And then they also obviously raided his home in Miami. There's more of the federal agents. Again, there's his home in Miami. I don't have many pictures of this, but looks like he has a nice little boat dock and a nice little, nice little piece of property there. Why wouldn't he? So one of the things that I am thinking about with this particular arrest of this Brendan Paul is because the feds have a case. Could they potentially be using this as leverage? Because now he's going to be charged with possession of cocaine, which is like a felony, right? Then you have possession of marijuana, which I don't know what the laws in Florida are. It's still federally illegal. Here in California, it's legalized. In many states, it's been legalized or decriminalized, or medicinal usage is okay, but you still can't take it in an airport because that's federal property. So a lot of people, the scuttlebutt around this is that potentially the government is going to leverage those charges against Mr. Paul to elicit his cooperation against the case against Puffy or P. Diddy. That is one of the shocking things that I think is going to be really interesting to see how it plays out. And a lot of people pointed out as well that, he's going to most likely have a lawyer hired by Sean Combs or P. Diddy, because I believe all these people that will be involved in this whole mess will be paid for by him, because he's come out and said he's going to vehemently defend himself against these accusations, etc. And he's got the money to do it. But the federal prosecutors can also request, because if he does have a lawyer that's appointed and paid for by P. Diddy or Diddy, that he's going to that they're going to ask for another lawyer to represent him so they can cut a deal with him. So that's one of the things that people are talking about. Like, this could happen. I think it's a shocking detail because you've got these charges. They can. I mean, when you're facing federal time, like, anybody will talk, right? So we'll see what happens with all of that. The second shocking detail of all this is number 2. Invariably, in situations like these, old interviews resurface and are re-examined with fresh perspectives and in different contexts. One such example was an interview with Usher on the Howard Stern show from 2016, where he said he had seen, quote, very curious things taking place in that camp, and that he would never send a child of his somewhere like that. Quote, it was pretty wild. It was crazy. There were very curious things taking place, and I didn't necessarily understand it. Now, that's what he told Howard Stern. Additionally, in a 2004 interview with Rolling Stone, Usher recalled how Diddy introduced him to a quote, totally different set of shit, sex specifically. Usher, who is now 46, was only 14 when he was sent to live with Diddy for a year, participating in Puffy Flavor Camp to see the lifestyle in the 1990s. Now, this is something, as I said in the top of the show, this is something I've heard in my entirety working in the entertainment industry. That there's an underbelly that has especially been pervaded in the music industry, and most of this knowledge had come to me when I first came here because I met people who were involved with Whitney Houston. Now, Whitney Houston was discovered by a man named Clive Davis, who literally has his own wing at the Grammy Museum. I was literally there 2 weeks ago. Very famous, started Arista Records, amongst other things. He also started Uptown Records, which is run by a gentleman named Andre Harrell. So a lot of, and guess who was one of those artists, by the way? P. Diddy and then Usher. One of the things that has been the scuttlebutt, if you will, is the allegations of abuse towards young performers, men and women, by these people in power. And the late Kim Porter, may she rest in peace, who is the mother of one or maybe a couple of Diddy's children, who he said regrettably in interviews, they were together for 10 years and just recently said that was something that he should have done, was marry her. She was very vocal, and she had revealed in separate interviews that she and said, and again, this is all conjecture. And again, I am not, as I say before, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a psychologist. I do not work in law enforcement. I'm just a guy who's been through a lot of shit. But she alleges that there is sort of an intergenerational trauma, or a legacy of trauma and abuse that happened at the hands of powerful people. This has long been discussed in Hollywood. You've seen it come out with Harvey Weinstein. A few years ago, we have Jeffrey Epstein. You see this happening. You know that it exists. I've certainly questioned things that I've seen while I've been here. It's no secret. It always kind of gets swept under the rug. And I'm not saying I saw anything nefarious, but I've heard lots of conjecture. Again, I'm like nobody, so it doesn't really matter. But Kim Porter was supposedly rather vocal with her friends about this, and she died mysteriously from a form of pneumonia in Los Angeles in 2018. So God rest her soul. But she had alleged that a lot of because things of this nature that have abuse involved, and this forcing themselves on other people and taking, it's all about power and control. And my father did this to my two cousins, and I most famously, confronted him in my film, A Murder in Mansfield, about this because I wanted to put that on record, to confront him, to see him deny it and kind of squirm out of it. But he was under investigation a year before he murdered my mother for that. And then they couldn't bring charges because the young girls, because of course it's traumatizing, could not testify. But it was a really horrific scenario. And so all of these things, you think about it as a normal, quote, normal person, you kind of go, well, why does that matter? Well, because we don't really think in those terms, but when it's about power and control, and Kim Porter had allegedly started that, it trickles down from Clive Davis to Andre Harrell, and then to Sean Diddy Combs, and then to whoever else he may have taken advantage of or abused. And that seems to be at the crux of all of this, is not only women, but also men coming out, and employees that came out that worked for him, alleging that this has been going on for a very, very long time, for decades, really. So, and even a gentleman by the name of Dwayne Keefe D, who I talked about last year, who came out and said that he took the life of Tupac Shakur, he had said that Diddy had also planned Notorious B.I.G.'s infamous slaying by, quote, drive-by. But we'll get into a little more of that later. Detective Derek Parker, who was a detective with NYPD's, quote, rap intelligence unit, had told the New York Post that he, quote, has a very questionable past, and that he's been able to control because of his power for a very long time. But it looks to me like someone is behind this, someone who really wants to destroy his brand and take him down. So it looks like there's the reckoning is what he's is what he is alleging, because there's been a stream of lawsuits that have all been settled out of court. There's, civil lawsuits. He settles them like instantaneously, right? There's been a lot of this that has been coming out. So this detective again is alleging, like, okay, somebody's behind this because they have it out for him. Now, Parker, who now works as a private investigator, theorized that the feds may have had an informant from Diddy's inner circle. Quote, someone's giving them sensitive information, someone's cooperating, and it's probably someone close to him. This looks to me like the tip of the iceberg, which is what many people are saying. And electronic devices and everything were seized from this house, and there are alleged people who were victims of quote victims. And again, he is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. This is all just conjecture at this point. These are based upon lawsuits that have been filed and the actions taken by the government. So it's a little, again, I want to just be really clear. He's not been charged with anything yet. At least it's what 3:22 here in Los Angeles on Wednesday, March 27th. He has yet to be charged. So who knows what's going to happen? But it's not good when the feds raid your home. My friend works for DHS. You don't want to see those guys anywhere near you. And they work extensively in this field. Like I said, I have friends that specialize in this. So it doesn't look good for him at all. And but we shall see. We shall see. So a lot of these lawsuits, lawsuits and allegations, like I said, have been around for such a long time. And that is the shocking detail number 3 of all of this, is that the sheer number of allegations is staggering, and they've all just gone unnoticed or gone away. In May of 2017, Cindy Ruella, who was Combs' personal chef at the time, filed a lawsuit against him, alleging harassment and abuse, sexual harassment and retaliation, and it was settled for an undisclosed amount in February of 2019. On November 16th, 2023, Combs' former partner, Cassie Ventura, filed a lawsuit against him, accusing him of actual, physical sexual violence, trafficking, and physical abuse. The pair reached an undisclosed settlement the following day, and the lawsuit was dismissed. And there's a statement that I'm going to read from his lawyer, and I'm going to get into Cassie's lawsuit a little bit later. He did have Diddy did have a history of abuse from other women. Kim Porter's nose was most famously broken while they were on a yacht, and he flew in a plastic surgeon to fix it because he felt bad because he struck her. Again, that's word around the campfire. The pair reached an undisclosed settlement the following day, and the lawsuit was dismissed. But just a week later, 2 further lawsuits were filed by 2 additional complainants, alleging what Cassie Ventura had said, and also things such as revenge porn and the releasing of these tapes in order to extort these individuals from filing lawsuits. Right? We're speaking up now. That is something that could come out of this when they seize at his home all these electronic devices. If they find something that backs up anything in these lawsuits, he's getting locked up for sure. Again, I am not a lawyer. I do not work in law enforcement. I'm not a psychologist. I'm just a guy who's been through a lot of shit. But we all know that if they can prove anything in these lawsuits and the government finds what they're, quote, looking for, which is why it's such an interesting detail that this retired detective had spoken about, it had to come from someone in his inner circle, and they may actually have evidence against him, which would back up all these allegations. But again, there's a lot yet to be seen. And then again, and all these claims too, by the way, have gone back since the early 1990s, 1990, 91, where Combs and his friend had allegedly assaulted these other victims as well, and then videotaped it. On December 6, 2023, yet another lawsuit was filed by a woman who alleged that she was also attacked by Combs at the age of 17. So she was a minor at the time. The same day, Diddy posted his response via social media, denying the allegations. Shocking detail number 4. The raid happened exactly 1 month to the day as the lawsuit that was filed by Rodney Little Rod Jones. Now, in February of 2024, a fifth lawsuit was filed by music producer Rodney Little Rod Jones, who alleges he was drugged and assaulted by Combs, who also forced him into intimate acts with sex workers. Possibly shocking, Diddy's parties. And there is, again, a lot of scuttlebutt. What is going on under the radar here in Hollywood? And these types of parties that he has invited people to. And, it's no surprise, but, people can do whatever they want, but don't take advantage of people. Don't assault people. That's not a good way to live. No matter how much money and how powerful you think you are, you will get a reckoning for sure. So Combs supposedly had hosted these trafficking parties, which is what Jones alleges in his lawsuit. And I do want to say, and I'm going to get to this in a second, but a little bit about how people can allege all this stuff in lawsuits, especially civil lawsuits. He said that he regularly hosted parties with underage women and illegal drugs, and implies that the record label executive who looked the other way either benefited financially from or access to and gave access to dignitaries, celebrities such as Prince Harry. A lawyer for Combs described the allegations as, quote, pure fiction, and the lawsuit was updated on March 25th, 2024 to include allegations against actor Cuba Gooding Jr., who has not yet responded. Now, the names of the music industry associates who are named in the lawsuit but have not been charged are as follows. Stevie J, Stephen Aaron Jordan, a music producer and television personality. A redacted name of a Philadelphia rapper who had dated Nicki Minaj. A Grammy Award-winning R&B singer who had trouble with law enforcement after assaulting a Bajan millionaire whose name was also redacted. Young Miami, who was not labeled as a celebrity, in the filing. I don't know. Young Miami. Hey, you're a celebrity. There you go. Prince Harry. Bishop T.D. Jakes. Cassie Ventura, who sued him as well, a singer and dancer, who was one of the victims. Georgia Mass Choir. Donald Lawrence, a songwriter and music producer. The Clark Sisters. Smokey Norfolk. Fahim Muhammad. DeForest Taylor. And Jose Cruz. Jose Cruz. So now, a quick side note, again. So when you have these civil lawsuits filed, and there's Diddy with Notorious B.I.G. So when you have these lawsuits filed, one of the things, and I know this because I went through litigation, and it was a countersuit, and they filed all this stuff, and I was like, this is rubbish. I mean, they've just made up stuff and just thrown it on a page, and just said, oh, he did this and this and this and this, and I had asked my lawyer at the time, I said, how can they say this? Because then it becomes record and then it becomes this whole thing. And they said, that's exactly why they do it. And they can get away with it because it is an appeal to the court. So you can get away with these types of things because, it is a pleading to the court. You can get away with the protections from the court because it is a pleading, and you're not you're just naming names. And we saw this with the Jeffrey Epstein filing and all those names that were released of celebrities. And that's how they can get away with this, because they're filing the lawsuit. It's a pleading to the court and they're protected. Now, you can't say this you can't make accusations in open court. You can't say it under oath. You can't do this in a criminal proceeding, but you can do this when you file a lawsuit and just name the names. And again, they do this obviously, of course, because it catches the media attention. Here we are talking about it, the whole thing. So it ends up being this whole kerfuffle, and it drags a lot of people in, unfortunately, because, Prince Harry, who knows if he was involved. He's seen, obviously, in photographs with P. Diddy, as we can show here, partying it up with Kanye West. But, it doesn't mean that he's involved in any other way. So really, when they start to drag these people into it, it just looks bad for them. And I think, they hope that puts pressure and shames the person into settling the lawsuit. Doesn't mean they didn't do anything wrong. But again, the bigger you can make the whole scandal, the more likely it is that you'll get your settlement. So it's interesting how that works. I want to take a quick moment to give you guys a message from today's video sponsor, Babbel, which is the #1 language learning app. Check out this sponsored message from Babbel. Hey movers, did you know that 1 in 5 Americans has learn a new language on their bucket list? If you're one of them, make 2024 the year you finally check it off with Babbel, the science-backed language learning app that actually works. Designed by over 150 language experts, Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons are your passport to speaking a new language in as little as 3 weeks. Real people, real conversations. That's the Babbel way. Babbel's tips and tools are not just lessons. They're companions in real-life situations. The approachable, accessible content is delivered through conversation-based teaching, ensuring you're ready to shine in the real world. Before Babbel, I couldn't imagine effortlessly ordering food, asking for directions, or chatting with local merchants, and all without consistently checking a language app while I'm on vacation. But Babbel makes it easy, providing the practical skills you need for real-life scenarios. Struggling with pronunciation? Babbel's got your back with speech recognition technology, helping you perfect your accent and sound like a native speaker in no time.
Hola.
Hola. Here's a special limited time deal for our listeners. Right now, get 50% off a one-time payment for a lifetime Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/Collier. Get 50% off at babbel.com/Collier, spelled BABBEL.com/Collier. Rules and restrictions may apply. Thank you very much, Mover Nation, for listening to that message. This video has been sponsored by Babbel. Thank you so much to Babbel for being a show sponsor. I greatly appreciate their support. Back to Diddy and the allegations. So, as I was saying, they drag all these people into this, and it's just a mess. And it's unfortunate too. So, Sean Combs, Diddy, has strongly denied all the accusations against him, and in a statement as of December 2023. Following a lawsuit that was brought by a Jane Doe, he called the claims, quote, sickening, and said his accusers were, quote, looking for a quick payday. Let me be absolutely clear. I did not do any of the awful things being alleged, he said in a statement. I will fight for my name, my family, and for the truth. Now, in the interview with the New York Post, the former detective who I mentioned before, Derek Parker, said Diddy's downfall was pretty much a sure thing once he settled the lawsuit with his ex-girlfriend, Cassie, only 1 day after she filed it. Quote, once Cassie was paid off, I knew there would be a ripple effect, Parker said. Like people thinking, hey, she got paid, I'm going to get paid. But he's got a past, and a lot of people know about it, and I think it emboldened a lot of them when they saw what happened with Cassie. A number of longtime industry insiders told the Post that they were shocked by the scope of the raids that took place on Monday. Quote, this is a major, major play. The feds don't do this unless they've got something on the man, unquote, said one veteran hip hop music executive. Quote, Diddy is all about power, but this don't look good for him. We're not used to seeing him like this. As a result, you won't see many folks in this business coming out to talk about him, the exec said. Not yet, that is, he added. Now, for years, Combs has seemed to wear like a Teflon Diddy suit. He has consistently managed to triumph despite facing significant allegations against him. Intense conflicts, both within New York and involving West Coast rappers, erupted, including the tragic shooting of his close friend, rapper Notorious B.I.G., Christopher Wallace, rest in peace. Literally probably my favorite rapper of all time. Absolutely. Gone too soon. I mean, just gone too soon. As Diddy established the Bad Boy record label in the mid-90s, which grew a lot out of Notorious B.I.G.'s catalog and his work and his eventual murder. So that brings up a few interesting points, which I'm going to get into in a second. His influence grew due to his keen business skills and adept handling of the media, but there was always a sinister undercurrent that ran through his rise to the top. So one of the allegations was that, in fact, even though they were best friends, many people have come out recently in recent years and alleged that Diddy was, in fact, behind the killing of Notorious B.I.G. It was originally alleged as a drive-by, and that actually, according to Diddy's former bodyguard, was not the case. Also, rapper Lil C's, who was one of the Bad Boy crew, who was on records with Notorious B.I.G. Notorious B.I.G. referred to him all the time in his music. He has alleged one theory, which is obviously starting to gain traction now, is that Puffy was behind it because Biggie Smalls, Notorious B.I.G., was writing songs for other artists, and that would have interfered with the royalties that Bad Boy record label would have gotten, and he would have gotten as his manager and his producer. And obviously, Notorious B.I.G.'s talent was unbelievable. So the fact that he would be asked to write songs for other rappers and musicians is of no surprise. He was a lyrical genius, literally. I have a lot of affinity for him. Diddy's former bodyguard has also claimed that Notorious B.I.G. was not killed by a drive-by. FBI documents have stated that the rapper was killed in a drive-by shooting on March the 9th, 1997. The car was, quote, standing there at the corner, says Eugene Deal, adding that the vehicle was probably there last night. Speaking to Vlad TV last year, Deal said that he received intel earlier that day that people were out to kill Combs, who at that time went by Puff Daddy. He said, quote, I said to him, Puff, we've got some intel. I've got some intel. The guys are coming to kill us tonight at the museum party, Deal recalled. An FBI investigation file obtained by The Sun, the newspaper The Sun, in 2018, Deal made the same claim. Also, Dwayne Keith D. Davis also last year came out saying that Diddy was involved in the murder of Notorious B.I.G. and also Tupac Shakur, alleging again that it was all about money and all about record sales and all about growing into the mogul he has now become. Who knows if that's true or not? But I think if I was a betting man, we'll probably start to see more and more details coming out of all of this. Again, this is all just conjecture, tabloid conjecture, speculation, statements from people who have been there or who that claim to be there and have inside knowledge. I'm just repeating it again. Sean Puffy Combs, P. Diddy, has not been charged with anything criminally whatsoever. He's just faced a lot of legal trouble in the civil courts. So in April 1999, Combs was arrested for allegedly assaulting record executive Steve Stout with a champagne bottle in response to Stout's unauthorized use of footage featuring Combs in a music video. I totally remember this story when it broke. I remember it being in The Source and in XXL. I remember this because this was like when I was listening to rap growing up. It was fabulous. And I remember, he beat the living daylights out of Steve Stout with a champagne bottle. That's got to hurt. Champagne bottles are thick. Wow. Following the incident, the two reconciled when Combs agreed to pay Stout $500,000. Despite facing a potential 7-year prison sentence, Combs ultimately received only 1 day anger management course as his punishment. Later that same year, Combs and his protege, rapper Shine, who I also really loved, rapper Shine, pictured here, were involved in a scuffle. They got into an argument with another patron at Club New York in Times Square, and gunfire broke out. Both Shine and Combs were arrested and charged in connection with the incident. Combs, whose legal team included O.J. Simpson's future attorney, Johnny Cochran, skated while Shine was sentenced to 10 years. Actually, it was not his past attorney. Johnny Cochran and Shine was sentenced to 10 years in prison. So I remember when all this happened. Again, but Puffy skated around the law. Now you could say one of the things you could allege is that he paid Shine to take the fall, and and that whole thing. Maybe that happened. And now, as you see the two together, that is a photograph of P. Diddy and Shine on the right. Shine is now a politician, and this is a photograph of them at London's O2 Arena last, I believe, November, during the Black Minds Matter event that Bad Boy Records and Bad Boy Entertainment promotes, and he was there announcing him on stage and that they're good old friends again. Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. So, even with all of these recent cases, they were all settled out of court. And one of the interesting things is that them being settled out of court makes it so he's not admitting anything. If it goes to court, he's got to take a deposition, right? So if he settles it out of court, he doesn't have to make a statement. And if there's ever criminal charges that come down, they can use all of those statements that he gave, whether they're in a deposition, whether they're in open court, against him criminally. So it is a smart tactic, especially if you have the funds to settle the lawsuits immediately. But it doesn't look like with this latest raid that any of his legal troubles are going away anytime soon. So that brings me to shocking detail number 5. And this is, I think, the most interesting. So we have all of these lawsuits that have been brought against him. There's Cuba Gooding Jr. on the right. This is, I don't know who this young woman is, but she was one of the suits that followed Cassie Ventura's lawsuit. But what I think all of this is, and this raid was a warning shot. And why do I say that? Well, one of the things that has come up, and that is a common through line when discussing anything, any legal woes, any sort of abuse of power, anything surrounding Sean P. Diddy Puffy Combs, has been his wanton use and abuse of power. And he has used that power, alleged by many people in these lawsuits, to intimidate and coerce and control and manipulate witnesses, evidence, and intimidate them not to say anything, to cover it all up. So, with the feds raiding his place, that potentially opens up a few details. So, Cassie, whose real name is Cassandra Ventura and the other people filing the suit are reporting things such as violent sexual aggression and intimidation. But Ventura's suit also said that Combs and his associates used his power and wealth to intimidate her into silence and compliance, with his employees threatening to damage her music career if she spoke out against him. In one particularly shocking detail, Ventura said that Combs threatened to blow up the rapper Kid Cudi's car because Cudi and Ventura were dating. The car later exploded. Quote, "This is all true," a spokesperson for Kid Cudi told the New York Times of the car exploding. Now, Ventura's suit was settled for an undisclosed amount. Like I said, literally the day after she filed it, within a single day. The singer had stated then that she, quote, "decided to resolve this matter amicably on terms that I have some level of control." And you know what, Cassie? Good on you. Get out while you can before this gets really messy. Following that, Diddy's lawyer, Ben Brafman, issued a statement regarding Cassie's lawsuit settlement. The famed attorney clarified the settlement between the two parties, clarified that the settlement doesn't mean that Diddy admitted to wrongdoing in the R&B singer's legal claim. He said, quote, "Just so we're clear, a decision to settle a lawsuit, especially in 2023, is in no way an admission of wrongdoing." Brafman said in a statement released to the media, which can be Combs' decision to settle the lawsuit does not in any way undermine his flat-out denial of the claims. He is happy that they got to a mutual settlement and wishes Ms. Ventura the best. So, what I think is this raid has somehow sent a warning shot that, look, man, we're coming for you, and you better not try to intimidate any witnesses, destroy any evidence, or do anything nefarious, or else you're going to be in a world of trouble. Again, Department of Homeland Security to go into such a high-end neighborhood as Holmby Hills here in Los Angeles is, I don't know, that takes a lot. That takes a lot. I mean, he lives next to Ridley Scott, for crying out loud. That's one of the photos here of this giant aerial view. Supposedly Ridley Scott could not get to his home. Ridley Scott, the famed, amazing director. Yeah, I think it's a warning shot. to say to Puffy, hey man, your time's up. We're coming for you. But again, he hasn't been charged with anything, and we shall see what the future holds. But again, we'll see how it plays out. Doesn't look good, but who knows? Maybe he's going to chug back a few bottles of that Ciroc vodka and drown his sorrows. Who knows? But you know what? It doesn't matter what I think. It matters what you guys think, my audience. Let me know in the comments below. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? You think he's going to be charged with something? You know, a lot of people are speculating it's going to be like the Donna Adelson thing where he, because he does have places in Miami, that he might get on an airplane to some non-extradition country and get stopped at the right as he's getting ready to board the plane. There's a lot of speculation and conjecture around this on how this is going to be handled, what's going to happen to him. I mean, look, his passport hasn't been taken away. He's free to travel, but the feds, I think, are saying, look, man, we got our eye on you and we're coming. I don't know, man. I don't know. All the money in the world is not worth going to prison over any of this, over any of this mishigas. I want to get to some of your comments, though. On a legal channel, a former federal prosecutor said it's an extraordinary amount of force and manpower that showed up for this raid, and that's significant. Yeah, I would say so. I think there was 100 federal officers there, at least in Los Angeles. I mean, I saw the helicopters because it's literally, I can see it from my balcony. The Holmby Hills, which is literally right next to UCLA, and like kind of situated between UCLA and Beverly Hills-ish, if you will. Combs has money, but he's still garbage. Let's see. Same neighborhood as the house that Michael Jackson lived in that neighborhood. Aaron Spelling. Like I said, my friend John lived there. It's a very high-end, beautiful, like perfectly manicured neighborhood. And the W Hotel is right there on Hillgard, and everybody goes there, and it's a thing. I'll tell you what. I want to say, give a big shout out, Black Widow. Thank you so much for the last 9 months of membership. Amazing. Thank you so much. Again, Cat Loves Cat Skills. Thank you so much for the super sticker. Karen Isabel Stewart. Thank you for the super sticker. Tina Luffman. Thank you so much for the super sticker. And yes, hello, Collier and Sweet Marisol. And Marie Hathaway. Thank you so much for the super sticker. I greatly appreciate all of it. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll just play these all back in rapid fire. But I want to get to some of your comments for sure. Few of you said, I wouldn't be surprised. Shago Guitarist says, I wouldn't be surprised if there's all kinds of evidence. If he's been raided, all those allegations that have digital receipts are now in play. Yes, exactly. All of those, again, I'm not a lawyer, but all of those things become in play when they seize them. I mean, this is the thing that shocked me. I was watching it play out in real time. I almost went live just because, but I think that, I was astonished. I was like, wow, they are really, the amount of law enforcement just to show up. And then they put his kids in handcuffs. It was terrible. Terrible for the children, you know what I mean? Because, they're traumatized by that. But yeah, I think they're setting a precedence here because, again, or precedent rather, again, because, you are, for them to come out in such force, they have to have something. And normally, you would see this and they were to arrest would follow from this, like almost immediately, right? He would be indicted or, arrested, indicted, the whole thing. But it feels a little weird the way they're taking their time. Now, again, who knows what happens? And it's 3:49 in Los Angeles. We'll see what happens, but it's a real thing. And let me also be clear. There are real people in these lawsuits who have alleged very, very serious things and people who have been very seriously affected by this. So let's, it's interesting to talk about this and all this conjecture, et cetera, et cetera. But let's also remember that there is a really human face to all of this. Look, as a victim and a survivor of violent crime, it is horrible. And to have people, again, dragged into this mess, named in these lawsuits that are now a part of this thing, it's a mess for so many people. And, reputations and just familial relationships, friendships, business dealings. It's a big deal. So just keep that in mind. Black Widow says having two police raid my home would be excessive. It's that small. Yeah, they're gathering possible evidence, and they are gathering as much evidence as possible. I want to get some of your other comments here, guys. Also, almost no countries anymore have non-extradition laws that allow human trafficking charges. Yes, no, I'm aware of that. There's only a few, like probably a handful of them. And they're scary countries that you probably wouldn't want to go to anyways. Oy vey. Let me see. What else? The witness in the complaint says they killed someone and that they saw it, and the cops came and changed the report and said the guy was shot by a drive-by. That's interesting. Oh, yes. Cat Williams. Yes, Cat Williams did most famously say that. I believe he said it on Shannon Sharp's podcast that this was all going to come out. Yeah, and that got like 50 million views on YouTube. Yeah, Cat Williams has been talking about this stuff for a long time. Look, as I said in the beginning, I've worked in entertainment for a long time. I've lived in Los Angeles for 20 years now. I have heard all of this over the years in different circles, different people talking about this. It's so prevalent and prominent in the music business. And you think of all the artists that have been touched and affected by this and their careers. It's a shame. And again, that's why I say, let's think about the people, I know that a lot of people want to grab pitchforks and go after people. Look, he hasn't been criminally charged, but there are real human effects to all of this. So, that's my personal takeaway here with this. I want to give a big shout out to all my channel members, my channel patrons on Patreon, channel members here on YouTube. You guys, without your support, I wouldn't be able to do this show. Thank you so much. Your patronage, every month, all your subscription fees, they all help to create the content that you guys are here and enjoying. Please give us a like, give us a subscribe if you're liking this content, but please at least give us that thumbs up. It really helps with the algorithm. This channel, we're about ready to hit 40,000 subs. That's all because of you guys, and I'm so appreciative of it. Please help us get there sooner rather than later. It would mean the world to me that we can cross that threshold very soon. We're only about 600 away, I think, maybe a little less, 550. So it would mean so much to me. Click that like, subscribe. And again, if you are a channel member or a Patreon supporter, we have our members only meet and greet this Saturday at 12 p.m. Pacific. So wait, hold on. It's 12 p.m. Pacific. Hoping that all of you across the world can join. I think that's a friendly time for everyone. And I'm looking forward to seeing all of you guys there. Mover Nation, we get through another one. It was it's a little bit of a rough one with these allegations, but we will see what happens. Please, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know your thoughts. Please check out today's video sponsor, Babbel. On that note, I'm Collier Landry. I'll see you on the next one.
This podcast is made possible by support from listeners just like you. For exclusive content around this podcast, please consider supporting me via Patreon by going to collierlandry.com/support. Please subscribe via Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts from, and please leave us a 5-star review. If you want to see video episodes of this podcast, please check out my YouTube channel at youtube.com/collierlandry. You can find links to additional resources in the show notes of today's episode. This podcast is a production of Don't Touch My Radio. Copyright Collier Landry.